I want to go to Josh Devine. He's a public information officer at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. It's good to have you with us. He joins us from Nashville. So, Josh, I want to ask you right into it. What's the latest in this missing search for this girl?
Sure, Joey. So we're doing a couple of different things right now. And first and foremost, we're hoping to find this girl as soon as possible. We want her home. We want him behind bars. But we're also working to try to understand the relationship between the two. And we're trying to piece together the details of the weeks that led up to the Amber Alert that we issued yesterday.
And just as far as that's concerned, how are you piecing it together? Have you spoken to her mom, for example, if you're at liberty to speak to us about that? Have you spoken to his wife, that is the person who's holding her or traveling with her? Have you spoken to students? Could you take us through what process you're going through to unearth information, to find her?
Sure. Well, as you can imagine, I can't really go into specifics, but suffice it to say,
Sure.
We're doing anything and everything we can. We're talking to anyone who might potentially know either of these individuals. We're also putting boots on the ground. We're going to businesses in Columbia, Tennessee. We're trying to find surveillance video. We're trying to piece together every single minute that we can that leads us to hopefully finding these individuals as soon as possible.
Now, that's important. And as we have this discussion, I just want to let the viewers know we have certainly a description as it relates to her. The fact that she has, we see her there, but we have description. She has blonde hair. She has hazel eyes. Her height is 5'5". She weighs 120 pounds. She was last seen wearing a flannel shirt and black leggings. In addition to that, we have the description of Tad Cummins, and his hair brown, eyes brown. His height, 6 feet, weight, 200 pounds. He's believed to be armed, and also he has 2 handguns. So, Josh Devine, if I can ask you also, we have reason to believe that there was a recent Amber Alert. Is there any authenticity to that there was an alert that alerted to potentially where they were?
Sure. So we issued an endangered child alert, which in Tennessee is sort of a mid-level alert where we have some concern for the child's well-being. We did that on Monday afternoon. Well, once we developed some additional information about this case, we escalated it to an Amber Alert. And on Monday afternoon, we're able to place Thomas in Decatur, Alabama. But beyond that, we have no specific information about where they might have been since. So that's why we have such a heightened urgency right now.
And here we see sort of the description of where she's last seen, the approximate mileage, etc. But when you say that there was it alerted to Decatur, was there a cell phone pinging? Could you give us any information as to how you did that and how you can continue potentially to track them, Josh, to other locations?
Sure. Again, I can't really go into the specifics of how we develop that information,
sure.
But as you can imagine, we have a lot of resources at our capability when we're trying to do this type of investigation. We're looking at anything. So we're looking at cell phones, we're looking at social media, we're looking at anything that might help us piece together the details as we need them.
And on that issue of social media, is there anything that you can share with us, Josh, that might lend you closer? Anything she might have said on social media, anything he might have posted on social media that might draw you closer to where they were going, why they were going there, what he was doing?
Not really at this point. You know, their social media profiles are pretty vanilla, you know, to use a common term. There's really not a lot of specific information that might lead us to believe that we're able to determine where they are at this moment.
And what about the challenges? And I just want to, again, direct the viewers. We have the car that they're driving in. We have the license plate of that car. What about the challenges? It's the understanding that he may be using cash. And I know, you know, credit card would be preferable because you might be able to track him there. What, if any, challenges are associated with that?
Sure. So there's a lot of challenges that we're facing right now. As you mentioned, he actually took out a title loan for one of his personal vehicles several days before they disappeared. And so he walked away with about $4,500 in cash. And as you can imagine, that's a fair amount of cash if you're trying to not be found. Now, we don't know that to be his MO for sure at this point, but suffice it to say, we do believe that he has a fair amount of money with him. So as you can imagine, trying to track him down, that's posing a bit of a problem right now.
And Josh, I just want you to stand by for a minute. I want to bring in the lawyers right now, Danny Savalos and Jonas Spilbor, my colleagues and partners in crime. So, Danny, I'll go to you. You know, there's this charge involving some type of sex crime or whatever. What do you think the prosecutors are going to need to do in order to make that stick, number one? And number two, you have the consciousness of guilt here, right? Because he's sort of in the wind with her.
Right, exactly. And you have to prove the actual sexual contact. But assuming they do, Tennessee grades different levels of sexual contact depending on the age of the victim and the position of the adult is that person in custody of them, or a parent or a guardian. The sentencing can be pretty severe. It can range from 2 to 10 years, 2 to 15 years, all depending on how the prosecutors in this case decide to charge it.
So listen, Jonna, she's 15, right? He's the teacher.
Yep.
He's absconded with her. How do you begin to speak on his behalf in terms of defending this type of conduct?
Yeah, I know. Putting my criminal defense hat on, it's hard to say right now because there's just innuendo about any sexual contact, although we can all sit here and say, well, what would be the motivation for a 50-year-old suspended teacher who's under investigation for I don't know why.
And who's married, by the way.
And who is absconding with a 15-year-old student. I mean, it's not too hard to connect those dots, but we don't have any proof of the reason why they are Thelma and Louising their way wherever they're going at the moment.
And do you think, I mean, all right, so there's no proof, but certainly there's circumstantial evidence, right, Danny? And that circumstantial evidence leads you to believe that a 15-year-old just doesn't take off with a student and go to a location. You have Josh Devine there who's saying, we're trying to track this guy down. The consciousness of guilt and leaving, that's critical here, is it not?
Circumstantial evidence allows you to draw an inference, and you're right, there are a couple different inferences. One is that she went willingly. The other is that she is a victim. She's a hostage of some kind. But either way, it doesn't matter. A child of that age, that 15 years old, is most likely, under any circumstances, not there willingly the way we think about consent.
And that's the problem.
His best case scenario is a kidnapping charge and an endangering charge if nothing sexual has taken place.
If. That's a big if. And Josh Devine, you have reason to believe, do you not, that there was some type of sexual connection between the two?
Well, earlier today, the District Attorney General in Murray County, Tennessee, which is where Columbia is located, and that's relatively close to Nashville, he indicated that this incident that occurred at the school several months ago did, in fact, involve this teacher and this particular student. And this teacher, who was fired by the district yesterday, as a matter of fact, now faces a charge of sexual contact with a minor.
And Josh, just the bottom line here is what, if anything, if someone sees these people, again, we've been showing you the description of the two, we've been showing you the SUV that they're in, the license plate number, what steps should they take? Is there a specific tip line that they should call or anything of that sort?
Certainly. And John has sort of hinted at this. This is the bottom line for us. She is a 15-year-old. He is 50 years old, and we believe that she is in absolute danger right now. So if anyone knows anything about where these two individuals might be right now, we want them to call 1-800-TBI-FINE. But by all means, if they're driving down the interstate anywhere in this country and they find themselves behind that Nissan Rogue with the Tennessee license plate that you mentioned, we want them to call 911 immediately.
Well, Josh, we are grateful and appreciative of you joining us. Certainly, we're going to stay on top of this story, and anything we can do to have our viewers weigh in and call, that's going to be important here. Thank you very much,
We appreciate your interest. Thanks.